First, welcome to the OC Bitches.
Welcome
today.
to the OC Bitches.
We are super excited today. We have a very special guest with us today. We're so happy that you joined us. This is Deborah J Fischer. She is a very talented and successful writer, producer, showrunner. She's known for, pretty familiar shows, I gotta say. Alias, The OC, Charmed, Criminal Minds. Take Two, for those of you who don't know, was a show that we worked on together. One season. And most recently, Ginny and Georgia on Netflix, which is huge. So congratulations and welcome. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here to talk to you ladies. And this is a show that I have so many fond memories of, and one that is continued to be talked about in Writer's Room and my most recent room. So the OC is iconic. The OC was the second job that I had.
That's incredible.
Since then, 20 years later, yikes, ladies, what?
I know.
20 years later, how does that happen? Been working steadily, moving up the ladder. Like on the OC, I was a story editor and have been moving up through the ranks. I was like a co-exec producer on several shows where I've either been like the number 2 or the number 3 or the number 4 writer. And right after Take Two, where I was working with Rachel, right after that break, it was the summer of like 2018, I believe. I took a vacation and I came back and I read the script, Ginny and Georgia, and I met with the creator, Sarah Lampert. She was an assistant like I was and wrote this on spec. And Netflix was very interested in it. And she met with a bunch of people and I got the job. And we spent like 2 weeks crafting, expanding on a pitch that she had given them. So we had like, I don't know if this elaborate 4-season pitch in 40 minutes. And we went in November 1st, 2018 and pitched it, and they bought it 2 hours later, straight to series. So
wow.
First time showrunner, technically, first time creator. We also had a first time director, female, all female,
Awesome.
We all female led team. And here we are, and it's doing pretty well.
Yeah.
We're doing pretty well out there.
Yeah.
It's been a really exciting time. We just dropped 6 weeks ago. And it's really been a really exciting time. And when this opportunity came up to come onto the podcast to talk to you ladies, the OC is definitely a show that we talked about a lot in the room, as well as, My So-Called Life and other sort of iconic shows. So it just felt really great at this time to like come back and be able to talk to you too about all that, because people still talk about this show 20 years later.
Right. Your story reflects the wonderful thing about this whole industry, that you can pick any department and learn from the ground up and build your success that way. Unlike, Josh Schwartz started as a showrunner and a creator. That's not the norm. Right?
Right.
So what you're talking
about...
That
is very true.
Right. So what your story is, it's very inspiring, especially for females out there. And, there's a lot of female showrunners, but that hasn't always been the case. So congrats to you on that. But I'm very curious, in the OC in those early days, being a story editor and getting story by credit, and then Josh writes the teleplay. I'm curious about that, how those early days were for you.
Yeah, I'd be happy to explain that. And that was so exciting too, because Josh was, I think, 27 at the time. He was the youngest showrunner ever in the history of showrunning at that time on a network. Like at that time, network TV was the only game in town, right? It was like, I think it was just like the big 4. And he had never done it before. So he was like, I'm the showrunner of this huge Fox series. And so what I learned at the time, so you start out when you're writing, your first credit is what's called staff writer. And then the next season you hope to move up to story editor. So the names, even though it's called like story editor, we're all kind of doing the same thing. But what I you learn then, and I think it's a good idea to explain to a lot of aspiring writers, because especially now that I'm a showrunner, and like what your expectations are of staff writers and story editors and executive story editors, because that's like a third season. If you get promoted, your title is executive story editor. And there's just like WGA Guild titles. But as a staff writer and a story editor, the expectation is like that you're in the writer's room and your job is to be pitching stories. You hope to be like a nonstop pitch machine to help the showrunner and the number two, to fix problems, to, generate new ideas, pitching dialogue. Like that's the job. And then bonus on top of that, when you get an opportunity to write an episode, is to hopefully write that something that's the majority of it will stay there. That's not always the case. I have been on shows where staff writers and story editors, like new writers, just can like really knock it out the park. But your job is to imitate the voice of the creator, showrunner. And, that's challenging and hard. And sometimes the showrunner is also finding that voice simultaneously as well. So what was great is it was such a good learning experience, because it's like you write a draft and you turn it in, then you get notes and hopefully have an opportunity to turn it around. Given our crazy production schedule, you don't always, especially with network TV, like it's very different from being on streaming, I will say. Like, but once the production train is running, it's like there's no turning back. So hopefully you'll have an opportunity to do a rewrite. But then you get to see the showrunner, and the number twos, like what they do, how they rewrite you, and how they like take your joke and like make it so much better, or like fix story problems that because you're like, this isn't really working so well, and I don't know what to do. And they'll just like fix everything. So it's like, wow. So you have like what you did and what they did, and hopefully in your next opportunity, you'll do even better, so that like even more of your words will be on the page, and they'll be like super proud of you, like, great job. Like that's the job of, young writers on a TV staff.
Mindy already said congratulations. We said congratulations because, your new show, Ginny and Georgia, is huge. I wanted to point out that I worked with Scott Porter, who is on your show, which is a tie-in, because we talked about all the amazing women we had on the OC and the writer's room. And Lila Gerstein was also a writer on the OC, who Scott and I worked with together on the show Heart of Dixie. That Lila it was her first time show running. And she's just one of my favorite people in the world. Scott is as well. Such an amazing actor. But I just thought that was an interesting, connection there as well.
Yes, Scott plays Mayor Paul on Ginny and Georgia, and we talk about Heart of Dixie all the time, because
you do.
He talks about you and that show and tie-ins, and so we would be on set and all the time. So I love that we have Scott in common as well. Like he's so wonderful. And he's like in a love triangle on our show. So it's really fun.
He knows a lot about that.
Yeah,
we have a lot about love triangles. He's just such a talented actor and such an amazing guy. So very cool.
You touched on something, and I think when we get into the episode, there's because it's so early, we're in episode 6 here. And is there a secret to writing that good dialogue? Obviously, like you said, when you deliver a story or you set it up, was it Josh who was giving the characters' voices, the dialogue specifically, or was it a collective thing? Did you see it grow? Do you remember that process?
I do. I know, right? Because it was like almost 20 years ago. And so rewatching the show again, like this week, like the first 6 episodes, which we affectionately called in the writer's room, like we called it like the summer season. And I don't know if you ladies remember this, but when I was in college and 90210 did their summer season, so we were like, the summer season, that was like the first 6. And so, but yes, it was, Seth Cohen, was Josh. So, I think like his voice, like in pitching, and pitching Seth Cohen dialogue or writing Seth Cohen dialogue was really fun, but also the most challenging because I think it was probably closest and most personal to Josh. But like always just having like Josh in our heads, but like in the writer's room, like sometimes dialogue that you either pitch in the room or on the page would like make it in. But I would say most of the time, like, you know, Josh would be doing like the final pass or rewrites on things and just, you know, putting the Schwartzisms, as I'll call it, in there that made the show the OC. And so, yeah, it was like Josh created this show. A lot of this was his voice and us just, you know, standing behind him with his vision and trying to, you know, make the show. And as well as, let's not forget Stephanie Savage, who came on from producing to be a writer on the show, like the two of them, Stephanie Savage and Josh, to, you know, be as helpful as we could. But it's like always like Josh talking like in our heads, I think. I remember that a lot, like just trying to imitate him and his voice. And then once we felt like we really knew everyone, like not just Seth, but like all the voices and who all the characters were. And that's something that you develop over time in a room, you know, spending weeks together as we're all like in the room eating constantly and snacking and talking. And like, you just like develop that closeness with everyone and the rapport. And then everyone's starting to feel more comfortable and knowing the show. And we're like watching dailies and we're sneaking down to set to see what you guys are doing, what's going on. And you guys are coming up to say hi in the writer's room. So, you know, after the first couple of months, it starts to feel like, oh, we know these characters. We know this show. But like afterwards, like Josh always puts his like stamp on it. And Stephanie too, like I think like because she, with McGee's company, was helping produce like the pilot and everything, and then became a writer on the show. Like, so she was also another right-hand person with him as well. So
you also had writing credits on The Heights and The Lynx, but you're saying that as a staff writer, you have a part of every script during that time?
Not every script, but breaking every story. Right. Yes. Okay. Like we were credited on those other scripts as well, but like collectively we all break story together. So if we are doing 20 some episodes, like whoever's in the room and is not off writing, we all break story together. So let's say it's like Rachel's turn to write an episode. Like we're all together breaking story to help Rachel. She goes off and writes an outline. We all give her notes. And then she's going to turn that into, you know, Josh and Stephanie. And then she goes off and writes the script. So, and then it's like everybody's turn. And then it's Melinda's turn to write like the next episode. Right. So we're all breaking story together, like in the room. But then you like go off by yourself in the terror of just like you and your computer. And you're just alone, like writing. So it's like we're together as a group, breaking story. And then you get to go off and like write other stories.
I needed a break from cooking last night, so I ordered Grubhub.
Oh yeah, I use it often. There's so many options that I know both my daughter and I will be happy.
When I need some grub, I get my grub delivered from Grubhub. I love to say that. It's fast, it's easy, and I like that I can order ahead of time, like even the night before if I need it. Also, I really love to support the restaurant industry.
Yeah, I mean, it's just been a lifesaver. And my daughter, as a treat, I like to surprise her. You know, if it's pizza night, and Grubhub is always there. It makes it so easy. We had the best experience last week with it, and she was very, very happy for pizza night.
I always check out Grubhub perks when looking to order because they offer exclusive deals from restaurants that I love.
Same here. Listeners, make sure to get the food you love with perks from Grubhub. Grub what you love.
I've spent a lot on food, mostly food, maybe some ice cream here and there. But I love online shopping and vintage stores. And I've definitely spent a lot in the last few months, yeah.
Yeah, no, same here. And during quarantine, a lot of matching sweatsuits. I mean, it's my uniform.
But one of the biggest purchases of the year that many people may make is insurance. So it makes sense to do your research.
Yeah, Americans overspend on car and home insurance by billions every year. That's money that could have been spent on more retail therapy. Hello, that's where the Zebra can help you.
The Zebra is the nation's leading insurance comparison site for car and home insurance. I checked out the website, and after entering my zip code, it was only minutes before I could compare policies from every major provider.
And the best part is, it's free. So why wouldn't you check out the Zebra? There's no hidden fees, and you can trust the Zebra because they have no stake in the policy you choose.
Make insurance your smartest purchase yet. Visit thezebra.com/OC. That's thezebra.com/OC.
It's such an interesting time. And like, as a writer, I imagine it has to be a little different like now than it was 18 years ago, or like, you know, when you're, you know, coming up with these ideas and stuff. Like, do you feel like it's changed a lot, or do you still feel like you're rooted in, you know, whatever your truth is and your experience? Like, has that changed for you at all? It's just kind of a fascinating thing for any performer, actor, writer, whatever it is, how much the times have changed, you know?
They really have. I mean, look in the last 20 years, especially just like what's happening in the world for women, you know, I think, you know, female forward stories are more common, and we want to tell, you know, our stories. We have more of a voice, I think, in rooms. Like, I'll just give you an example of like on Alias, there were over 10 writers, like including teams, so a number of like, I would call each like body, and like my old partner and I, they would count you as like a team, but you are obviously two people. But we only had 3 women, and there were like 7 or 8 men. So, and that was a female-led show with Jennifer Garner. The makeup of the OC was different because we had, you know, Melissa Rosenberg and, you know, Erica and I, we had Liz Friedman, we had Jane Espenson, we had Stephanie in there. There was a lot of women. JJ Philbin was there as well. A lot of women in there, a lot of women. So that was a very heavily female influenced room for sure. But I think that, you know, that things have become obviously not just in the world, but in rooms more, you know, more political, and, you know, some things that are the way people talk in the rooms is not the way we would talk in rooms now. That's a lot like that has changed. Definitely. You know, respect for other people and their backgrounds and their religions, like everything that has definitely changed over the years, and for the better. For the better, absolutely.
Kind of leads to the episode we're going over today, because there's certain topics in this episode that I'm watching it back and I'm like, could we do that today? Or is this still acceptable? You know, and so like, I kind of want like your take on it. And I know, Mindy, we talked about it a little bit, but there are some things in this specific episode that could be controversial.
Yeah. I want to bring up too, I don't know, I often wonder if Josh, I'm sure he remembers this. I remember specifically the character of Summer in the pilot. Initially, Summer was going to be really sex positive. And I remember after we watched the pilot, we had a lot of talks about her in the room. And we thought, you know, because in the show, you know, Summer's very popular and she's always talking about guys and everything. And we're like, wouldn't it be more interesting if Summer were actually a virgin? And this is just like part of her being popular. And, you know, Josh did end up going that way, but it was, you know, at the time it was like, seemed like, oh, that's the obvious way to go. Like, Summer's, you know, sleeps around. She's super sex positive, but like, let's have another layer to her character. And like, let's actually show a side that she's actually, she's not, she's just acting popular and acting like she's really sexual, but she's really not. So, those are I remember some of the big things we talked about like after the pilot, but to your point, after watching this episode, I was like, Sandy Cohen, how dare you? How dare you do that with Kirsten? You know what I mean? Like there was a lot. Yes. So we should talk about that for sure.
Let's get into the episode, because this is because we have a writer here. I think it'll be a fascinating conversation. Kirsten's dad, Caleb, returns to town with a new, very young girlfriend, a girlfriend who has wandering eyes all the way to Ryan. Marissa is choosing between Ryan and Luke, but catching Ryan in the act leads Marissa to a night of passion with Luke. Seth finds a way to impress Summer, and Julie drops the D-bomb on Jimmy. That Julie Cooper.
And this was episode 6, titled
The Girlfriend. Sorry.
The D word could be interpreted, in a few ways, Mindy. The D word.
But yeah, so in the beginning, I do want to say this is the great Ellen Dale's first episode. And what a great addition to the show. And I grew up in Orange County, so I always like to reference things that I know come from the real OC. But Caleb Nickel was based on Donald Bren, who is the wealthiest real estate man in the U.S., $17 billion. He owns the Irvine Company since 1972, and I just love how Josh incorporates that very famous, realistic part of the world. But yes, he's great, and he was so intimidating and such a jerk. But he's not like that in real life at all. And you could totally tell that Sandy has a lot of animosity towards him, and they have this it starts this epic, battle that is Sandy and Caleb. But and he clearly is such a. Our producer wrote, he's kind of a dick. Sorry.
Caleb, absolutely. Like, he's a total, you spend 5 episodes talking about the infamous father, and then he shows up and he's literally everything that we thought he was going to be. And even more, he is completely intimidating. And, his daughter is running his company really successfully, but like in the shadow of her father. And like one little word or phrase like crumbles her. And, it was funny, like the way he talks about Seth, like really, that he's not a good skirt chaser and that he's not like muscular, like not really an acceptance of like who Seth is. And, and him and Sandy are constantly like going to battle. It's like, it was interesting to see. Yes, there's a 20-year history between like these two characters, like beyond, like you could just see all that. And then he's just like this big, intimidating, tough guy. And he played it like perfectly, perfectly.
Quite a dapper grandpa, I might add.
Yeah. And then, with the 24-year-old girlfriend, like,
oh my goodness.
She was sexy.
Well,
I gotta say, this episode to me was the most sexualized for some reason maybe you guys could...
Of Caleb?
Well, of Caleb, yeah.
With Gabrielle and Marissa losing her virginity.
Right. So Gabrielle...
There's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah, she was played by Nicole Hilt, just beautiful, sexy. And when she comes out of that pool and she's telling off and Seth and Ryan are drooling and You're So Damn Hot by the OK Go plays... I remember, and he's like, oh my God, that could be my grandma. But there's a very funny blooper, everyone. You could probably find it on YouTube of Adam Brody going, I got to go do something. And he walks and runs away.
I'm going to Google that after this for sure.
That tracks.
And Ben just like breaks and starts laughing.
I mean, like, to your point, I get it. Like, she was gorgeous. And like that sort of teenage drooling over this hot woman. And, she's using her sexuality. Like, she knows what she's doing to these young men and leaning into all of that. And so, but yes, the extended camera shots, like the reaction shots of them where it's just like the drooling and the dropping. It's like, would that still happen as much? This probably, but like it was really a big. We're going to lean into how gorgeous and sexy this young woman is,
and she
with
did
the
it.
Very, very rich older man.
She did it really bravely, and she looked beautiful. And but teenage boy fantasy. You got to write that in there. It's realistic, I guess.
Exactly. That's the thing, and that's I think really does still translate. Because now, the way in the world is right now, older women with younger men, dating, late 20s men want to date women in their 40s and early 50s and even 60s. So it's still very real.
Oh, that relationship is very realistic. Yes.
But here's what I'll say too. I don't know if we could do that still because he's 17 now and she was supposed to be 24. So I think that there might be a little more caution nowadays, like because he's underage and she's 24.
That was my issue, and like takeaway was like, oh, like that could definitely get flagged or whatever, because 24-17, even though in the grand scheme of things, the years aren't that like far apart, but when you're underage, and it's a whole issue there, I think. I was like,
it's an absolute issue. And I don't know if it would fly now. I think that he might have had to be 18, especially if it's an on-network show. I think there are definitely streaming shows that lean into this kind of thing. But like for network TV, I think they would probably be more cautious and say, no, like he's got to be a senior and be 18 if he's going to maybe have sex with a 24-year-old. Yeah.
Julie had to say to Luke, right, you're 18. In that relationship, they had to add it. They didn't have to do that in this situation.
Well, maybe because he doesn't sleep with her?
Yes,
right.
Exactly.
Maybe that's what it was.
But Luke and Marissa do.
Yes, they do.
Of course, they're the same age in real life, the actors.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Everyone's really in their early 20s, but on the show. But yes, because they're having sex, Marissa and Luke, like you had to say that. The 18.
Right. I mean, I know, and they have sex. I mean, I know we aren't going in order or anything, but whatever. But like the motivation, it was actually so realistic for like that age range where she walks in on Ryan and Gabby and they're going at it. And then that makes her decision. You know, she's like, okay, it's on, and goes and finds Luke. And you're like, okay, yeah, that's typical teenage logic.
I mean, that's so high school, and I probably would have done the same thing. And she's going to the guy that she likes and he's with another guy. Okay, well, I'm going back to Luke. Like,
I'd probably still do that
to me.
Yeah,
that math made sense. Still does.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Sadly,
but true.
I do want to make note of this. This Caleb Kirsten relationship, which is, we know what happens to Kirsten later in the series, but I totally relate to this. I had a father who was very, very strong presence, but he says he wants to only have a small party, and it's too late, and he's demoting her, and I just noticed she's got that glass of wine early in the day. And when she has a problem, people are saying that came out of the blue, and it's like you just never know what's going on under the surface of the dynamic between a parent and a daughter. And not only that, so intimidating. Mm-hmm. So he's so controlling, and she's just so affected by the presence, by his presence.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think several times in the episode, we cut away to her like alone, like either in another room with her glass of wine, like watching the party. Like she's so deeply affected by him, like saying, oh, I just need a small party. And then of course, his expectation was that there will be 150 people there. But, that in those little lines that were added, I think you get the sense of the history that she's just constantly trying to please her dad and just constantly living in his shadow. And, probably married Sandy as a little bit of an FU too, like he clearly didn't approve, of Sandy Cohen, but she married him anyway. And I'm sure that little dig was, a great thing.
It's crazy that he wants permission you didn't ask permission to adopt this boy, Ryan. It's like, what?
Right.
Now he's really still
ask
controlling.
For advice?
Yeah.
I know. It's like she's a grown woman with a husband and an adult 17-year-old. Why would she have to ask permission from him? Yeah.
That actually brings us, to the scene of Julie dropping off Caitlin's riding gear and giving Jimmy the guilt trip. And I think China was her best friend. China's getting a lot of motion out of this story.
China is referenced multiple times in the first 6 episodes. Like everyone knows that Caitlin has a horse named China.
Yeah.
And alopecia. Yeah, and Julie walking into and Julie walking into his office constantly, write the check. Like the other thing I will say about this episode that I loved is at the end when Julie goes to Caleb, when she knows that it didn't go well with Jimmy, and pleading to that, like, hi, things aren't going well and my kids. And he's like, well, we'll have lunch. Wink, wink. Like, we'll have lunch. Like, Julie's super smart. And, I think like back then people would have said certain things about the character of Julie Cooper, but like watching it again, I'm like, I get Julie. Like Julie Cooper, she grew up, Riverside. She has come here. She has a lot to do. She's working very hard for this family. And like you said, like the husband, like we had lanes. He was going to make the money and I was going to do this. And it's like, I love Julie Cooper for her honesty and for her unapologetic, everything that she says is so unapologetic. And I love it. I'm here for all of it. Love it. Love it. And I love that despite knowing that her husband still always had a crush on Kirsten, she's like, I don't care. I'll still marry him anyway and live right next door. Like, whatever. Just like grounded and realistic. She's like, I get it. That's what it is. And she'll just talk about it so nonchalantly, just throw it out there. It's like, I love that character.
It's interesting you say that because watching it back, we're watching and paying attention to so many more details than we did 18 years ago. But it's almost, I get the sense that, of course, I don't remember the performance, but I do get the sense that she's saying, I don't have any other choice. I love you, Jimmy. Like I can see that she actually loves him. But she's, at one point she gets a little bit inspired. No, you can't ask Caleb for a job. And then she gets a little bit, oh, wow, that was kind of sexy. He's like, I don't care. I'm going to do everything I can. And there's a moment of her going, huh. And then it's, really? Did you get a job? And as soon as he says no, okay, I got to fix this. And she goes off and does that manipulative thing because no matter what, she's a survivor. And if he's not going to take care of her, Julie's going to do that. And, she throws that to the wayside and it's a little misguided, but it's kind of a harsh reality. And that's the world that she lives in until she loses everything and then has to become a much better person, I guess.
Right. And it is, should there be a little more nuance to what Julie says and does? Absolutely. But I think it's coming, like what you say, it's coming from a place of constant survival. And like you'll get these little glimpses of her, like with the ladies in the OC, that they're constantly having these events and things. Like you get these glimpses of her where she's always in survival mode and is just always trying to protect her and her kids. And it's like, I think as women, there's an element of that we can all relate to. Absolutely. So,
when you drop the D-bomb on Jimmy, but you're even like, I'm sorry, honey. Like you do it, there was a honey in there. So it wasn't like harsh. Like you could, I don't know. I made note of it because it was written in there like that. Like, it's not like, F you, we're getting divorced. You were like, I'm sorry, honey. But like, you have no choice, And
yeah, I noticed that too.
Did you?
She kind of did a little afterthought, like, I'm sorry. I mean, it wasn't much, but
no, but you like say honey. And it was like, most people probably don't throw honey in there when they drop the D-bomb. So like it doesn't usually go hand in hand.
Right.
So yeah, sometimes I just don't have the time or energy to cook, especially something healthy. It's very hard. And I like to add vegetables to everything and, feed my daughter as healthy as possible. And Daily Harvest makes that so easy because it's all in it. It's all there and it's ready to go.
Totally. Same here. And while I love takeout once in a while, I also prefer to prepare healthy meals at home. And thankfully, Daily Harvest makes that possible.
Everything stays fresh in your freezer until you're ready to enjoy it, which is so convenient and it prevents food waste.
They make your weekly meals easy so you don't have to think about it. Smoothies for breakfast, crisp flatbreads for lunch or dinner, and filling meals like their roasted harvest bowls and soups. And my family loves Daily Harvest. I'm the cook in the house, but sometimes I'm not available. And having Daily Harvest in the house is a no-brainer. Everyone is happy, healthy, and satisfied.
Daily Harvest never uses preservatives, added sugar, or artificial anything, including their recently launched almond milk, which is made of only almonds and a dash of sea salt. That is it. I use it in everything. Smoothies, cereal. I've used it in pancakes. I mean, it's really, the options are endless.
Daily Harvest is also committed to minimizing their environmental impact. They're in the process of transitioning to 100% compostable, recyclable, plant-based, and renewable fiber packaging.
Get started today. Go to dailyharvest.com and enter promo code TheOC to get $25 off your first box. That's promo code TheOC for $25 off your first box at dailyharvest.com. dailyharvest.com.
I've been using protein powder for years, but I finally found a delicious way to get my protein before and after workouts. You're not going to believe it, but it's a cereal, Magic Spoon.
Yes, this stuff is almost too good to be true, but it is. Magic Spoon has 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and only 4 net grams of carbs in each serving. Only 140 calories a serving. It's keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, low-carb, and GMO-free. Variety pack 4 flavors are cocoa, fruity, frosted, and peanut butter.
I keep saying it. I love this cereal. Totally reminds me of my childhood, but I don't feel guilty about eating it. And I just tried the cinnamon. Oh my gosh. And I've actually started craving this cereal. Like, I dreamt about it.
I just love that it just gives me the nostalgic feels, you know, because the frosted ones, I loved frosted cereal as a kid, but now I can eat it and not feel guilty about it at all.
Go to magicspoon.com/TheOC to grab a variety pack and try it today. And be sure to use our promo code TheOC at checkout to save $5 off your order. Magic Spoon is so confident in their product. It's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked.
Remember, get your next delicious bowl of guilt-free cereal at magicspoon.com/TheOC and use the code TheOC to save $5 off. Thank you, Magic Spoon, for sponsoring this episode. So we've been talking about that, you know, it's going to be the Caleb birthday party and whatever, and Gabby, the girlfriend, you know, tells the boys they should be inviting ladies. And Seth and Ryan run into Summer and Marissa on the pier. And why I really took note of this scene was because of what I was wearing personally. my juicy, I don't even know what you call it. It's like a swimsuit cover-up, juicy, hooded, zip-up, romper mini dress with Rocket Dog platform flip-flops. So that was my biggest takeaway from the entire episode. No. But it's like you start to see the Summer and Seth dynamic. You know, she makes him lick her finger to get the salsa off of it. Or like, you know, so that starts to form. And this is obviously a bigger episode for Seth and Summer at the end.
Yes.
Which we will get to. But I liked that scene and, you know, Ryan and Marissa kind of struggling because Marissa has to make a big decision.
I'm glad you went back to that scene because this is a perfect question that I had for you. This to me, this is the example of the character dialogue coming out where she says, like, you know, Summer says, well, he comes from a place where they have knife fights and drag racing and sex on the hood of a car. That's from Fast and the Furious. Well, that movie was based on a true story. and I thought, so this is an example of the character dialogue, and it feels like Seth and Summer they're starting to get their voices where they reference pop culture. And I mean, how does that come about in the writer's room? Do they, you know, it's that humor, that meta humor, that self-aware humor that these two characters start doing quite a bit more than, say, Marissa and Ryan aren't doing it. All of a sudden, Summer's doing the similar thing with Seth, correct?
Right. And if I remember correctly, that was by design, that like by episode 6, we knew this was going to be the episode where Summer and Seth were together and she was going to get him to go around introducing him to all the hot financial guys. But it's like you wanted to peel back those layers of Summer too, that she wasn't just more, because, you know, the rewatching this as well, things I notice about Summer, she's always tan and in a gorgeous bikini or, you know, in a cute little romper, you know, looking amazing. And it's like, no, there's all these layers to her. Like she can spar with Seth on this level, like the pop culture references. And he'll like look at her like, oh, okay. Like Summer can give it back to him, you know, because the barbs and the fun banter, that's something that Summer does as well. So, but that is something that we like pitch for sure. Like in the writer's room or like on the page, like, yeah, like fun pop culture references. Yeah, those are things that we talked about a lot. And some shows do more than others, but there were with the comic books, like that was a lot of, you know, Josh, like comic books and cool, you know, like the nerdy t-shirt fashion. And like I feel like a lot of that started with like the OC, like all that like
too.
sort of cool nerd culture was born out of the OC, like longer curly hair and like nerdy shirts. Like, I don't feel like there were a lot of shows that had it like that. Like Seth Cohen was an icon too. Like there's just so many iconic characters.
I have to respond to that because I wrote this, you know, when he comes up on his skateboard and on the bike and they both have this, you know, they stand up and he talks about the burrito, but Seth says, who's winning right now, me or my hair? And I wrote, is that dialogue or is that improv?
That is a very good question. It does feel like something Josh would say, but it also feels like something Adam Brody would improv. So
what do you think, Rachel?
I don't know.
I don't know. That's a very blurred line there between Schwartz and Brody. So.
Yeah, it is. It's a very blurred line between Josh Schwartz and Seth Cohen right there.
Yeah.
So who... We should make that our mission to find out who did that. Yes, text him right now.
Text Josh right now.
Was that your line, or did Brody?
It's just so endearing, and I was like, it's just like, I know that he would. I know that he improvs some things. You know, he'd like button up a scene like that, and I learned how to do that too. And sometimes they'd use it and they wouldn't. But I just feel like he may have done it on his own. It's hysterical. He's kind of
like a fun button on the scene.
Yeah. Seth is kind of obsessed with his hair in quite a few episodes. I love it. I do think that this is a fantastic scene. You mentioned it, the Cohen dinner table with Caleb and Gabrielle and him and Caleb saying, you know, you have a quick wit, Seth, amazing. You're not better at skirt chasing. And his response was, well, if by skirts you mean girls in your outdated cowboy speak, which is... so telling.
Right? Isn't that a great way to disarm the, like, you know, the older generation with their not PC speak? I mean, it's just like perfect. What a perfect response, calling him your cowboy talk, you know, hey, John Wayne.
Like you're John Wayne, exactly. You know, John Wayne Airport in Orange County.
Yeah, but he just throws it away like so perfectly. So it's like, it doesn't even seem like, as smart as Caleb is, he doesn't even really see like, oh, that's probably kind of an insult, but and he's giving it right back to me, but he does it in such a funny way, like you don't even read it that way.
They probably have that dynamic between them that, you know, he says, my grandpa's mellow. What? Well, to you he is, right?
Exactly. Mellow to you.
It goes into one of the best scenes in the episode, I think, when Sandy pops up defending Kirsten, and you know, a lot of husbands would do that, but he's really like picking a fight with Caleb, and but of course, I do love this. You're still smoking the weed, and Seth coming in going, Dad, you smoke weed? Ryan, guess who's a stoner, man? I mean. These little moments, I think, is what makes the OC super unique, and you know, this genre with this new spin, this humor that pops out, and you know, whether it was all written, Josh, or improv. I don't think there was a lot of improv, to be honest.
Well, I like how it was written, smoking the weed. Like that was just.
Are you still smoking the weed?
Smoking the weed.
It's like Caleb going, "What's a booty call?"
But it is, I do. Okay, let's first talk about, because like watching the Sandy of it all. Let's unpack that like almost 20 years later, because it's like you see that, like, yes, almost 20 years ago, your husband sort of stepping in for you like over the line, But now has been doing that. Like, I feel like looking through the lens of like 2021, it's like, hey, husband, like, let me fight my own battles with my dad. Because if we look at it, it's like he stepped over the line. Like as much as he did it, as he wanted to defend his wife against the father, he was right, but he should have let his wife have that battle. I think that's the way I look at it in like 2021. It's like when it was written and shot, it was like, yes, but now it's like, oh, I think we would do that scene differently in 2021. Like,
yeah,
it became more about Sandy.
Give your wife, wife more agency. Like, let her stand up to her dad. But look, the great thing about the scene is gives a lot of conflict because he's stepping on all the toes there, and then Caleb goes off. It's like, and then he gets, Foe like clutching his pearls, like, oh, well then I'll demote you and everything. And then you spend the rest of the episode like, Dad, don't demote me. Don't demote me. So it's like that perfect, like, father, like, oh, fine, you have an issue, like, don't work for me anymore. And then you spend the rest of like, Dad, we still want to work there. So it's in terms of conflict for story, it's great. But in 2021, it's like, hey, let your wife have her own battles with her dad. Okay.
Right. Yeah, that's actually a really interesting point. And you know what's funny is I didn't even think that. So I don't know what that says about me, but I was just like, but I didn't, because it was, I don't know, but it's an excellent point. And I think for sure, I feel like, if it was being written today, it would go differently, right?
I think husbands will still do that. And they want to fix every problem. But I do.
Depends on the husband.
And Sandy is such an idealistic in so many ways, perfect husband, father, but nobody's perfect, and he means well, but what comes out of people's mouths is really about themselves, especially when they're complaining about it's showing you his deep resent towards Caleb. And just, this is the start of this incredibly great, conflicted relationship on screen. And leads to some great storylines down the line.
Yeah.
It does, because you get a glimpse into their marriage when he's like, let's just quit and pack up everything and let's go back to Berkeley, like that little house. It's like, and what's interesting, I think it was said in episode 6, but when Kirsten says back to him, like, you like, as idealistic as he is, like, Sandy's the public defender and he likes to surf and he is sort of like anti these women in this group. Like, he's still a part of it, right? He still enjoys all the benefits with which come to living in this home, in this neighborhood, being married to this woman. So, and also her saying, like, if that's what you're saying, like, this is a bigger conversation. Like, I love that scene where it's like, do you really want to give all this up too? Because sometimes it seems like that is your truth, but sometimes it doesn't. So let's talk about that, and I love those interesting conversations in marriages where it's like, could we just pack all this up and live, really simply at some beach house in Berkeley? In the back of, some van. I don't know.
And my mind went to,
maybe not.
Yeah, what about your kid? You're going to uproot him. And, that's where like my mind went when they were having that conversation. I was like, hello.
I do love the Sandy Kirsten dynamic because they stand up for each other, and sometimes they're selfish and self-centered, but then, and they have problems, but they recover quickly. And that's what's healthy to me. So, life isn't about problems. Life is about solutions. Here I am. I'm the guru.
Absolutely. Good communication. Their marriage, despite like they have the issues when she writes the check to Jimmy for $100,000 without consulting him, they always have good communication about it, even though they do have disagreements, big ones.
For sure.
But they always seem to come back. Like, there is a real like love there. That's what I love about their relationship too. It's like there is a genuine love there as well.
Yeah, they're like a really good example. Yeah, for sure. The other, not to make this about me, but the other thing I wanted to talk about.
No, I want to talk about summer.
Yeah, I want to talk about it a little because I have a funny tidbit about it. But
love it.
Yeah, so obviously, you see a little bit more of Summer in this episode. Like she's kind of, you're like we were talking about, but also that like she reads Forbes and she knows all this stuff about these like financial guys and she wants Seth to introduce her to them all. And, Seth obviously gets fed up towards the end, but when, he confronts Summer and he's done introducing her and he's like, well, these guys stare at your boobs. I'm like, which guy was staring at my boobs? I laughed at that, but
I love that.
I know. And like not afraid, like whatever. So this scene, we shot it and it's obviously the first time Seth and Summer kiss. Summer kisses Seth and it's such a sweet moment and you see that she's like opening up to him and everything. But in real life, I remember, I don't know if I should be revealing this. It's like personal, whatever. I remember after shooting this scene where I kiss him, like I remember thinking, do I like Adam? Like it was like my first like realization.
Oh, like an on-screen kiss?
Yeah, like on-screen kiss. And I remember thinking like after work, because I feel like it was the last scene I shot that day, being like, wait, do I like Adam? Like that's when those wheels started turning. So rewatching it, I was like, I remember thinking that. Anyway, just a little, I don't know if I should be revealing that because whatever, but.
Well, it's also, you didn't just kiss him once, you probably did like 5 or 6 or 7 times. Like, how many takes you did, right?
Right. Fair. Yes. I think it was definitely
so
more
it wasn't
than
just
once.
one smooch, it was a lot of smooches.
So really it was just a forced crush because I was forced into kissing him many times. So by the 8th time, I was like, okay, maybe I like him.
All that math makes sense to me too. Like, being an actor, having to kiss someone a lot, like, do I like him? That math at that age all makes sense to me as well. Completely.
There's been many times where it's not, you don't get excited about scenes like that. But then there's a few times where you're like, wow, that was fun. I get to kiss my friend. But it's always a little awkward. But if you have the benefit of ultimately liking and having a relationship, I think it's pretty normal. Or it's not normal, it's just not uncommon, right? Or it is normal, sorry.
Maybe. But it's true. Well, it's either you love it, you love doing it, or you don't, right? It's like, there's really no gray area. Like it's either an exciting thing or not. I will share one personal thing as well. That a couple years after I named my dog Brody after I love him.
That's awesome.
So
was it like a little loud terrier? No, I'm just kidding.
He was a yellow Labrador rescue.
Aww.
And Brody, I named it with the IE instead of a Y, but it was after affection for Adam Brody. So that was my shout out to Adam Brody. He was
so crushable. I feel like even Kelly Rowan was like crushing on, like everyone, how could you not have a crush on Adam Brody? Maybe you didn't, Mindy.
Yeah.
I feel like
it was Ben. It was Ben.
Oh, was Ben for you?
Was it Ben too?
Remember I said he looked great in those Levi's?
Oh,
he did as well. Like, yes, yes.
Mindy watching Ben walk away did it for her.
Down the long hallway at Manhattan Beach. I was like, where do I get those jeans? I had another dream last night with Ben in it.
Oh, well.
But it wasn't like that. I was telling, oh my gosh, it was so funny.
Jeez, so much to unpack today. Jeez.
There's a lot of juice here. I love it. Love it.
But I do want to. I want to go back to that scene because not only was it the first kiss, but it was so cute and so.
Let's talk about that poem
and talking about the squirrels. And then I wish I were a mermaid. Yeah, I wanted to kiss him too. That was absolutely. I wish I was a mermaid. And
so. Yeah, going back to it was really the scene. I mean, it was the writing that really made me be like, oh, I like him. It was just, but it was so sweet. I know watching it, like my heart felt it watching it now, even though I was in it at the time, but it's so sweet.
It is. It's truly, and it does, I love that he stands up to Summer finally. He's like, because, we've spent 6 episodes where he like literally worships the ground that Summer walks on, is constantly introducing himself, Seth Cohen, like, we're like, we get it. And then he's had it. He's like, I see what you're doing and I'm not going to do it. And him standing up for himself and then you getting it, it's just so adorable. And then the reveal of the poem and you're like, what? And every second of that scene, I just felt all over again watching it. I was like, and it was like I'd forgotten everything. It was like I was literally reliving it as a fan. Like, I'm like, oh, the kiss. You know, it's like I was literally reliving it as someone who was just like, just watched the OC again for the first time. It was like, oh, like, well, I'm so happy they kissed. But that poem, right? Like, oh, it's so, if some young man had remembered anything like that about me in high school, like, I'm sorry, I'm 50 years old. Like, no man has ever remembered anything like that in the history, like that level of detail. It's just so young love, like the specificity of all of it. It's like, you're just rooting for the two of them.
Yeah.
Summer, kiss him. Kiss him.
I know. You know, and the button on the episode, I don't know if you would call it a button, but like, you know, we said before that Marissa winds up losing her virginity to Luke, which is a big deal. But my heart, at the end when she gets dropped off by Luke and Ryan sees, you know, it, and
that
she's like, looks
over where he's looking over at her.
And he looks over and he sees her and she says, "You're too late." I was like, oh, like I felt it.
And like, she did it just like almost like nonchalant, just like matter of fact.
Yeah.
You're too late. And it was delivered. I mean, brilliant performance in one line from Mischa.
Yeah, I loved it. I was like, I really gutted me. Yeah.
It does. Because when, you know, in the filming of that scene, when she is losing her virginity and he goes over and he's like, "Should I get a condom?" And she's like, "Yeah." And so that where she like rolls over and the camera is like on her, where she's like waiting for him. That look and then that line, I mean, brilliant. And I do. I literally have goosebumps right now, and I'm gutted again because. And she was just like, "You're too late." Like, oh my God, Ryan! Like, oh,
I know,
so good.
But it also goes
so hard
back. We kind of skipped over it, but I know we're at the end of the episode. But when Summer is saying, "Hey, man, you gotta go for that," he's not going to wait any longer. Summer was giving her some peer pressure, and we're all the way she speaks about sex. We're assuming she's done it, and I think Marissa is so fragile, and she's so impressionable and so vulnerable that so many things affect her, and she's so sensitive, and she makes this impulsive decision. And I think that's what's so powerful about the show, because I think a lot of kids or just young people do things, make those decisions kind of on a.
It's so working on a teen, a teen show. That is still so relatable, even 20 years later. It's like clearly she and Marissa enjoy so much hanging out with Seth and Ryan, but the pressure of still loving Summer as her best friend, and then still wanting these friendships and all that like gives her this social status, and like struggling with that, like so relatable. And you see that sensitive side of her where, with the family, like her dad just got beat up at Cotillion, and now, it's just so all those layers. Just love the reality of like what kids deal with in high school right now, and trying to do the right thing, but it's really hard. And losing your virginity is, it's not some like fireworks aren't going off. It's this, this big social construct. It's like, it's just another night, really. And it's just like the way that Mischa Barton delivers that line, like, "You're too late," is just so encapsulates like what I think women go through when like they lose their virginity. It's like,
oof.
Well, I love
this for most of us.
Yeah, I mean, the OC covers so many themes, and I think that's why it resonated so well with the audiences. I mean, this one deals with like class system, poor versus wealthy, and sex, and intergenerational conflict, and I mean, it's amazing that such a young showrunner had his hand in such a great show.
It is truly amazing, and a testament to his, to his ideas and his writing, and working with Stephanie on this, like the two of them, like it, I mean, it's to be able to watch it again, like almost 20 years later, and still like holding up beautifully. And, it's a show that we still talk about in rooms to this day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's pretty incredible. Like, I hope he knows, between this and, all the other shows that he's doing, but like, this is really, truly iconic. Truly.
Well, he'll definitely be listening, so he will hear.
He better. Hi, Josh.
Well, we were just thrilled that you were willing to come on and talk to us and just to reacquaint again and see you. And but we like to do before we let our guests go, we have a few quiz questions if you're up for it.
Oh, I saw there might be a quiz section. I was like, okay. I'm nervous. I admit I'm nervous. Okay.
Oh, I get them all wrong. Even when they're like, who said this? And it's a summer line, I still don't know. So there's no pressure.
Really? Okay, good. That makes me feel better.
Let's see. Which one should we start with? Mindy, you want to pick?
How old is Gabrielle?
I'm going to say 24 because that's what I said earlier.
Ding, ding, ding. Oh, yes. We already said it.
Am I right?
You're right. You're right. Okay. There were two firsts in this episode. What were they?
I'm going to say the Marissa and Luke having sex. Mm-hmm. Is that one?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then the summer Seth kiss. Is that the other?
Very
got it.
Good.
I feel like I'm cheating because we talked about all those things. But
well, we can ask another one that's from the pilot.
Oh, okay. Let's try and see if I can remember that too. Okay.
What character has the first line in this series?
Oh, well, I mean, the first scene is Ryan and his brother, so it's one of them, right? Isn't it?
You're warm.
Let me guess.
Warm.
I'm gonna guess his brother.
Very good, Trey. Yes,
Trey.
I did.
Yeah,
is that right?
Yes. You did awesome.
Very good.
Yay!
Yes. This was so much fun.
Well, Deb Fisher, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. And we would love to have you back if there's ever a chance. And yeah, this has been awesome. I'm really, really loving being educated about this show that we got to spend so many wonderful moments of our lives.
Yeah, well, thank you both. I've enjoyed so much seeing you both again and talking about this show because, like I said, this is the second series that I had ever written on, mm-hmm. and it still means so much to me and something that now being a showrunner, I talk about in my room and would love to come back in the future and see both your faces and talk about how special this show is because it's really special.
Thank you for coming and congratulations on all of your huge success. And we really look forward to hopefully seeing you in person sometime soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take care. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
So let's listen to some voicemails, shall we?
Let's listen to some voicemails.
Hi, Rachel. My question is, what is your, I know you have a lot of handbags, but is there a favorite handbag that's like a go-to for your everyday mom life? And my second question was, I'm a teacher, so I wanted to know what's the best everyday tote, and I'm kind of looking for a good one that holds up really well. My second question is, well, I saw a long time ago in an article that asked if you were not an actor, what would you be? And I think you said a preschool teacher. And I wanted to ask if that would still be the same after seeing what it's like teaching your daughter kindergarten remotely, or if you would want to be somewhere else, or if you want to be a teacher still. Thank you so much for your time.
That was sweet. Okay, it's a two-parter. So for the purse situation, you always have like a big bag when you're a mom, or at least I do. So I always have like a little insert bag, I call it. I like fanny packs that you can just strap over your shoulder if you don't want to wear them around your waist, to put all your main things in. There's like this designer, Rachel Comey, I really love, that makes really cute ones, but that's a little on the higher end. But, Target, you can never go wrong. But yeah, that's probably my go-to. As far as a tote goes, it's a little tougher. The tote world. I'm like, look, I am in my closet / office, so I'm looking at my purses and I'm trying to answer this. What totes do I have going on? I really like finding deals. I'm not gonna lie. I like going on the Real and finding like used bags for a really good price. I've gotten a few good totes off there. But also reusable shopping bags I like recycling. So when you buy something from a designer and it comes in like a really nice bag that's reusable, I use those for my totes. So upcycle. And then the teaching thing. So yes, I always said I wanted to be a preschool teacher. So it's kind of funny because my daughter went to a co-op preschool, which means you as a parent are very involved. You have to work the school. So I basically was a preschool teacher. After doing that, I was like, holy crap. This is so hard. And then yes, during the pandemic, being a kindergarten teacher for her was also like, teachers are incredible. They are amazing. I don't think I could do this. But it just really made me appreciate teachers, and where I love kids. It's definitely my passion. Hats off to all the teachers out there because you are incredible. It's so much work. I'm happy I got a taste of it, but I probably, yes, would change my answer at this point in time. But thank you for asking me those. Those were fun. Mindy, you know, I'm sure you have some opinions on those
No,
types of
I actually
things
was
as
going
well.
to say a great tote is literally the bag from the supermarket. So I know. No,
Yeah.
I actually am using a purse right now, and I'm trying to remember, but I got it as a gift from the OC, or somebody gifted. It's a beautiful leather, and I'm not remembering the name. I have one from Lamb. Did you keep some handbags from the show? I did. I have a Chanel bag.
You keep saying you have all this stuff.
Well, you know what?
And I'm like, I have nothing.
Well, you also were a victim of
Oh, that's
theft.
true. Things were stolen.
Yeah.
Yes, I have been robbed quite a few times.
But no, I think there was. I think I have a Lamb bag. But I remember we went to a Chanel event. I kept thinking that I got it from the OC, but I have a Chanel handbag, and they gave me and Mischa a bag. Do you remember that we drove to Orange County and went to
Yeah, we did at the South Coast Plaza, and there was a Chanel event. Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely don't have that anymore. That was definitely stolen.
I agree with Rachel. I think being a teacher is one of the most, the most giving career and the most selfless kind of career. But there are probably people that I don't know that I could do it. My husband is one. So.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Anyway.
Not an easy job. Thank everybody. Hey, thank everybody. Thank you, everybody, for listening today for our episode 6 recap.
Episode 6, the introduction
with Deb Fisher.
of
That was
Caleb.
awesome that she came on, by the way.
Pardon?
That was cool. She's very busy, that lady.
So sweet. Ladies and gentlemen, follow, rate, and review. Welcome to the OC Bitches, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you like to watch us, check it out on YouTube.
So last week we recorded a feature episode with comedian podcast host Danny Pellegrino. And of course, he's the best at asking questions and getting to the bottom of things. So he brought up an article that Mischa recently was interviewed and said some things about the show. So we decided to address it a little bit in hopes that Mischa would hear us talk about it and would be willing to come join us on the show so we could hear her entire perspective and what she is saying that she experienced.
Can I ask you guys a gossipy question? Just tell me to shut up if it's inappropriate. But did you see, so Mischa gave an interview with E about the show, about like leaving the show. And she said it was very confusing. It felt like it talked in circles a bit about leaving the show. And I was wondering, she had referred to people being mean on set or something. And I was wondering if you had understood what she was trying to say in terms of why she left the show. Is that inappropriate to ask? Okay.
No, we figured you would. And honestly, I'd be disappointed if you didn't, knowing that, no.
I got to work for the people. I gotta get to the bottom of this.
You are working for the people. Well, obviously, this is going to come out a lot later than this interview just surfaced. But, Melinda and I were talking immediately after it came out. And we were just like, wait, what?
I don't know if I can. The one thing going into this podcast, and Rachel and I discussed this, I can tell you about my experience with total honesty and transparency. I cannot speak for somebody else's experience. And we have touched on this, Rachel, that someone who's 16, 17, 18, that amount of hours of work, pressure, at such a young age, at best, you're exhausted, and at worst, it's overwhelming and chaotic. So it kind of breaks my heart a little to know that we knew there's a lot of pressure on her, but if it was really that bad of an experience, that's not right for any young person. But some of the comments were very perplexing to me. So I don't know what the truth is about that, but I do know that yes, this was an enormous amount of pressure for
the one thing,
and for everybody.
Yeah, the one thing that I can say is, like, in one of her first comments, she says that I was added last minute after the first season, which is actually completely false and not what happened. So it's starting out that way. I was like, well, that's misinformation. Where are we going with this? And what is she trying to say? Which I would actually like to talk to her and find out, what her experience was from her perspective, because I saw things a little differently, I guess.
Yeah, I found it confusing.
we were originally going to be series regulars during the pilot. And they do that because they see a future for these characters. But the powers that be said, no, you're going to have to wait. They're going to have to be guest stars for for the first, I think, 11 episodes. And on the back 9, we became series regulars. So that was a little perplexing. But we all do know that now, that in the early 2000s, the scrutiny of the young ladies going out, and the Nicole Richies and the Parises and the Lindsays and the Mischas, there was a lot of attention. And just by being out there, somehow it got turned against them. And we're finding that it may have been quite a toxic environment. So Rachel and I both think it's really important. If she wants to come and talk to us and share her story, we would love to explore that. I think it's something that we're all becoming aware of, and it's important for us to learn, and in our culture, what can be very damaging to young people. Like, what is my responsibility as an actor in a professional sense, showing up on time and being there and being grateful, and also feeling like not being overworked. Hollywood is notorious for doing 18, 20-hour days. And not really, it's not for the faint of heart. Let's put it that way. But being that young, I do think it can be an additional stress.
And I would imagine, of course, I could never be in those shoes, but there was always so much paparazzi, particularly around a lot of that young Hollywood crowd. And I would just imagine that would make everything a blur to me in a lot of ways. Like, thinking back at a time when there's flash mobs in your face at every place you go, it would everything would sort of blur together in my head. But it was interesting. She had mentioned something about specifically men being mean to her on set. And I wondered, I felt like she was alluding to cast members. And there's always been sort of like these rumors about the OC set, about, the younger group, the four of you, Rachel and Adam, and it always feels like a little confusing. Like, we needed a camera back then so we could go back and like watch the footage. Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm definitely pretty confused by most of it. And I don't know who she's referring to, because I didn't personally witness any of that. So I don't know who she's referring to or what, because I did not see it myself.
I did not either. Like I said, everyone has their own experience. And
I mean, come on.
To me, I couldn't wait to get to work. It was like going to musical theater camp. I just loved being there.
Come on. Clearly she was having fun. I mean, this episode, she's just making out with Ben McKenzie. What could be so wrong.
Right.
And listening
she
to
also
Rooney.
talks she says she loved it. She said she loved the show.
She did. So yeah, it's kind of mixed messages, but I hope we can
need
get to
her
the
on
bottom
this.
of it.
We need her
do.
on the podcast.
We
Mischa,
do.
come on. Welcome to the OC bitches. Cause that would be, I mean, come on. Everyone would love that. And she's also mentioned in other interviews that she would love to do a reboot. Like we can get, the Marissa character back, revitalize her. So maybe the experience was sort of mixed in a lot of ways, but maybe a lot of it is confusing looking back, because I can only imagine what that woman went through, because that time in pop culture history was so crazy. I mean, with such a large group of women, and we're learning so much about Britney Spears, and her experiences, and Paris Hilton, and all sorts of these people who the media consumed in such a horrific way. Well,
but I have one more point to make that, number one on the call sheet was Peter Gallagher, and then there's Ben and Mischa. But when you literally, a human being, one, is the star of a show, and you are working incredibly long hours, and you're the it girl, and everybody wants a piece of you, and the paparazzi want you, and you have agents and managers telling you you're getting offered all of these movies and this show, because you're on this show, you can't take these offers. What do you do with all of that? How do you process all of that without feeling like you don't have freedom from to do what you want, and maybe this show is a grind, and maybe not having the healthiest attitude, or I don't know. I don't want to say anything disparaging, but I don't know. I also, it's hard for me to speculate because I like to speak from truth. But we can only imagine that it was pretty, like I said, overwhelming in just how to navigate these waters at that age.
I know. So young. So young.
So if you're being told to, sorry, you have to be at the OC, or if they have to be your boss.
I'd want to ride out a TV show for like all of time. I would just be, I want to get like a sitcom or something and then just sit on it for 15 years. Like that's my dream.
Totally. Oh my God. Sitcoms are the best.